Happy Monday, degenerates! It's been a couple weeks and it's like we never left, baby. We are back. UFC 302 pay-per-view fight week. It's Monday and we got the bucket hat. We are ready to go. And as you can see, I'm traveling. I'm coming to you from parts unknown, but I am very excited to be here with you. I brought the whole setup. I apologize. The video is going to be just a smidgen worse quality. That's my bad. We got to work with what we got to do sometimes. Your boy deserves a break. All right. I'm eating shrimp tacos every other day. It's a good time. It's a good time to be alive. And we're going to pay for those shrimp tacos on Saturday. How is everybody doing in the chat? I want to give you all your shout out here, but to do that, unfortunately, I got to drop the sexy sunglasses and I got to switch to the real ones so I can actually see the screen, which, believe it or not, is only like, a foot away from my face, and I still can't read it with those damn things on. We've got my guy Ailin Dream. We've got the Grateful Dude, Nigel Lee, Ethan Hershey hanging out, Mushroom MMA, the man himself, PGO, Dixon Cider. We've got Lock Day MMA. That's a new one to me, I think. Lock Day, welcome to the show. Sam Gambit. We've got, okay, all right. Dimmuburger. Dimmaburger. What's going on? Welcome to the show, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here. As you know, this is the home of fight. We are going to break down the entire UFC 302 card, top to bottom. We're going to have a little fun along the way doing it, but we're mostly talking about this gambling, try to take some of this info we got for you and make some money. And there's one guy I know really well who's really good at making money. And because of that, I had to bring him on this week, none other than James from Lucrative MMA. My guy, what's going on?
Yo, what is going on, Clint? Thanks for having me on, brother. UFC 302. I can't wait for this, man. I was telling you off camera that I'm running on about 1 to 1.5 hours sleep right now. Also in parts unknown. Seems like we're both traveling, but we've both come together on our travels to make some money to fund our travels. I know you said you're eating a lot of shrimp tacos. I'm eating a lot of everything, a lot of food over the last week or so, and someone needs to pay for it, right? So
that's right.
I'm looking forward to this card, bro. UFC 302. I think it should be a decent card, not only for entertainment value, but also for money. It's one of those cards where I don't love every single spot, but the spots I do like, I feel like I got a good read on them. So, yeah, man, I'm looking forward to breaking it down.
I can't wait, man. I can't wait. And you best be right. We're going to be eating good this week, and we're not the ones paying for it. The bookie is going to be the one paying for those meals. My guy Dixon Cider says, someone Uber eats James a Red Bull. We got to get that energy up. Let's go. Bro. I will carry the energy. James will come around. He's running off little sleep, I'm sure, halfway through. He'll get excited about like a round 3 prop or something, and he'll get worked up halfway through the show. So we'll get there. Don't you worry. Everybody, do me a favor and hit the like button if you have not already. Please share this bad boy out if you're on social media, if you're on X or something, Twitter, and you're watching this bad boy. Let's freaking go. Let's get right on into it. What are we waiting for? We got fights to talk about, baby. First fight of the night, you've got André Lima, and he's taking on UFC returner Mitch Raposo. This one's super interesting here to me, James. It's really interesting. So if you guys look at André Lima and you're like, I know that guy. Why do I know that guy? I see that face somewhere. This is the dude that got bit. If you guys remember, there was a fight a couple of weeks ago, and one of the fighters got disqualified for literally biting his opponent like a rabid dog in the middle of the fight. That's André Lima, who got bit and then got the tattoo of like the bite mark on the inside of his arm. So he's back. He's 8-0. He's undefeated. So 1-0 coming off Dana White's Contender Series. He's going to be 2 inches taller than Mitch Raposo. He will also have a 2-inch reach advantage over Mitch Raposo. I like a lot about Andre Lima. James, I really do. I mean, he stands kind of tall and upright. He's got good feints. He's got nice counters. I think my favorite weapon of his is that step-in elbow. That's what really kind of rocked his opponent in that first fight in the UFC is he has these big, nasty, well-timed stepped-in elbows. Tight squeeze. He likes to jump the gilly. Every once in a while he'll put himself in a bad position because he's decent on the ground, but he's confident in his skill set, knowing what he's doing there. The bite situation was a little bit weird, man, because frankly, I felt like Lima started fast and his opponent was Severino, and it looked to me like he was taking over that fight. I mean, we haven't seen enough of Lima to make too many judgment calls on him, but I kind of felt like he was fading, man. It seemed to me like he was starting to get controlled. It seemed to me like, jumping gilly in that tight squeeze and working up from bottom, like it was starting to take its toll on him. So Severino looked like he was kind of trending the right direction before he got DQ'd. I've got questions. About Andre Lima. I'm not ready to jump in feet first on this kid yet. Mitch Raposo, 9-1. He was the Cage Titans champion. And if you guys are with me, I'm shouting out one of the sponsors early, Spectation Sports. We have been watching the resurrection of Mitch Raposo. He was on The Ultimate Fighter, lost on his opportunity there. He was on Dana White's Contender Series, lost on his opportunity there to Ludwig Shalinian and then Jake Hadley, respectively. So decent levels of competition, but both those losses have not aged particularly well in the UFC. Neither of those guys has really done anything. And in fact, both of them are kind of trending downwards. So not guys you necessarily want to be losing to, but since getting or not getting cut because he never made it technically, but not getting the opportunity in the UFC, Mitch has rattled off a bunch of wins via finish in Cage Titans, and he's come back. They're giving him a shot. The level of opposition is questionable, man. The records of the guys he's beat: 3-2, 7-4, 2-0, 4-2. So I mean, the records are positive at least, but it's guys with really little experience that he's getting these wins over. Mitch Raposo is strong. He's explosive. He hits hard. He's very opportunistic. He's well-rounded, decent hands, decent wrestling. I like his boxing. He's got some pop, and we've seen multiple late finishes on his record before. So we know he can carry that finishing ability and that killer instinct deep into the fight. Man, this one is really tough. Andre Lima is a minus 220 favorite. You can get Mitch Raposo as a plus 180-ish underdog. And I'll be honest with you, James, I kind of feel like this is a dog or pass situation to start the night. Like I mentioned before, I just have questions about the game of Andre Lima. I'm not ready to lay minus 200 or higher on this guy. Maybe he's the goods. Maybe he's legit. But I kind of think Mitch Raposo with a second shot at life here is really going to take this fight seriously. And I know I can trust him deep in the fight, whereas I'm not sure I can trust Andre Lima deep in the fight. I'll lean dog or pass. I think this one's probably going all 15, so maybe by decision. But if Lima does have some kind of a gas tank issue, I wouldn't be shocked at a round 3 finish or something from Mitch Raposo in this spot, man. Talk to me. I hope you're a little more confident on this first fight of the night than I am, because I'm a little wishy-washy on this one.
I wouldn't say confident, but more confident than you on the Lima side, on the favorite. I think he deserves to be the favorite here. Obviously, this is a short notice fight, not for Lima, but for Mitch Raposo. So anytime fighters are coming in on short notice, making their UFC debuts, it doesn't usually work out well. Just in general, in MMA, it doesn't usually work out well. Usually their first fight, short notice, they're just getting their foot in the organization, right? They might not 100% expect to win, or they're likely being put in a fight above their level. And it seems to me as though Andre Lima is probably a little bit above the level of Mitch Raposo. And coming in on a short notice, it just makes it ever harder for him. So I'm sure Mitch will have another fight in the UFC. They usually don't give you one and dones, especially if you're saving the show to some degree. But I think Lima's a better fighter. I think he's superior in the stand-up. I think he's more technical. And he's had a full camp for this one. So, I've got my phone up here, and I'm not being rude and scrolling and texting on Instagram while we're talking. I've got my phone up so I can see the odds. I don't have my usual setup, so I don't have 2 screens. So this is my second screen for today. And I've got the odds now.
He's swiping left. He's locking up dates while he's live on the show.
Oh, mate, you already know. But I think I might bet Andre Lima if he gets a little bit better than what I'm seeing right now. I'm seeing minus 200. If I see something like minus 190s, maybe I'll put a bet on him. I just think the trajectory is kind of tough for Mitch to walk in and get this win in this fight, because I do think Lima's a good fighter.
Okay. All right. So first fight of the night, little bit of disagreement. I'm leaning dog or pass. No betting. No betting here on this side, guys. I haven't pulled the trigger on this fight in any way, shape, or form. Not feeling comfortable. So, hey, as I always tell you guys, there's nothing wrong with a pass, right? We've got plenty of action on this card. There's plenty of fights. If you don't feel good about one, you don't have to pull the trigger. James is saying the favorite is good. Anything under that 2XX number, and he's currently sitting just over that number. So do with that stuff what you will, guys. Next fight up, we're talking about Joselyne Edwards and Ailin Perez, women's MMA at its finest. And I've got a history, man, with both these women. I've got a real history with both of them. Joselyne Edwards has been a thorn in my side recently, James. She's been somebody who I'm really I'm struggling not to have that emotional response of trying to get one back. You know what I mean? Because she keeps beating me, and she shouldn't. She won back-to-back split decisions over Jiyeon Kim and Lucy Pudilova, which I felt like she very clearly lost both of those fights. And I felt like she was kind of gifted those decisions a little bit. And then she goes in there against Nora Cornell. She was put in enemy territory, if you guys recall, back at UFC Paris. And it was a spot where I thought Nora was just straight up a bum. You know what I mean? The easiest local girl that was the closest driving distance from the from the arena. So they call her up, they get her the fight, and she ends up looking not half bad in that fight, getting the win. And in her next fight, she ends up looking better. That it's like, oh, okay, so like maybe I misjudged Nora. Maybe there's a little bit of an untapped talent there in that spot, and I really just looked past her. But at any rate, Joselyne Edwards, I've not had a good run betting against her recently. Ailin Perez, OnlyFans fade warning. My guy Dix Insider, I'm sure, will be in the chat reminding you all of that. 9-2 overall record, and she likes to twerk. She likes to get in the cage and win a decision, and she likes to get on top of her. You know what? The problem I have, I think, with Ailin Perez. Let me just go ahead. The problem I have with Ailin Perez is she does not know how to ground and pound, James. She literally does not know how to ground and pound. She got on top of poor Lucy Pudilova, and she tried to hump her to death. I mean, she was bouncing on top of her with her hand here, and I'm gonna get the video demonetized for this, but like she's doing this on time. I'm not making this up, guys. Go back, rerun the tape. Like she's literally jerking off the head of Lucy Pudilova as she's face humping her instead of actually ground and pounding. There were no elbows. There was no pulling back and getting momentum behind it. Like she's just sitting there on top of her, bouncing, and somehow managed to get the decision in that spot. I want to fade Ailin Perez so bad, dude. I want to fade her so bad, James. She has that quit in her. Okay, you run through her regional tape. She's fought terrible, god awful opposition. And the one time, the fight with Tamaris Vidal, the one time she actually looked half decent, she got disqualified when Tamaris Vidal pulled the full Aljamain Sterling that we talked about 2 weeks ago, faked her way straight out of that fight. But the biggest thing with Ailin Perez is she's a good hammer and she's a bad nail. And I'm not even going to say she's a good hammer. She's a okay hammer. She's that rusty hammer that you probably need to replace for your dad on Father's Day because he's had it since he was in high school. That's the hammer that she is. She likes the body lock. She's physical. She's strong. She's got big old thick thunder thighs, and she'll drag you around the cage. But she doesn't do anything, man. And she also doesn't wear damage very well. You know, there's some fighters that it looks like you could take like a steel wool scrub brush and you could just like rub it on their face and they would never show a single cut. There would be nothing going on Ailin swells up. Like we've seen in several of her fights, when she takes damage, she's just like immediately like puffy and bruised. And when the judges are looking for damage and when the judges are scoring who did the most damage in a fight, she's going to be on the wrong side of that just because she doesn't have that skin tenacity that some other fighters do. So she doesn't have a great skill set. She's gassy. She wears damage really poorly. She's got the OnlyFans model going on. And man, I tried to fade her with the Lucy Pudilova spot last time. I thought Lucy did enough to probably get the decision. Lost the decision on that, and I'm salty. But what I did is I ran back that fight. And sure enough, I'm sorry, not Ashley Evan Smith. Ailin Perez gets tired, and round two, the tide starts to turn. In round three, Lucy Pudilova is taking her back and wrapping up a choke on this chick's neck. if you've been watching Joselyne Edwards recently, she's been working so hard on her grappling. And in fact, very similarly, in the third round, she had the back of Nora Cornell and was trying to also wrap up a rear naked choke. Both of those women were very, very close to finishing those fights. And Joselyne Edwards is still pretty young. She's training with Piera Rodriguez, who, even though she got disqualified in her last fight, looked massively improved and looked like $1,000,000. That's her like best friend and main training partner. Guys, I know this is just nasty talking about this, but I am going to bet Joselyne Edwards. I'm a little disappointed because the line is moving the way that I don't want to see it moving. She was a bigger dog earlier. She was like plus 170 a day or so ago. And I thought the money would come in on Ailin Perez because, of course, everyone thinks she's a lock. Everyone wants to parlay her. I think she's a bum. I want to fade her. So I want to bet Joselyne Edwards, and I need to get on it sooner than later because this number is going down. And on top of that, James, I'm going to get nasty here. I'm going to say that not only does Joselyne Edwards come in here and whoop this girl, but when she gets tired, she's going to finish her. I'm looking for the round 3 sprinkle. I'm looking for the round 3 by submission on Joselyne Edwards. I think she's going to get this girl back when she's exhausted, and she's going to get that choke that Kopylov was this close to getting on her. I'm calling for the upset, man. I'm going to end up locking a bet here on some women MMA underdog action. Joselyne Edwards, round 3 sub, calling it now. Talk to me, James. What do you think about this one?
Bro, that was beautiful. That was a masterpiece. That was a great breakdown. I enjoyed every moment of it. I can't follow that up too well because you've hit on everything, and I'm actually on the same side as you. I like Joselyne Edwards. And this is a bit of a change for me because I've backed Ailin Perez in, I think, every one of her UFC fights so far. Pretty sure I've bet on her in every fight. Even the debut against Stephanie Egger at plus 200, I played her. I played her the cancelled fight before that. I can't remember. She was scheduled to fight someone that was cancelled. Then I still played her in the debut against Egger. Played her after that. I had a max bet on her against Ashley Evans-Smith.
I did too.
And well done, bro. That was like taking candy from a baby. That was very
easy money.
It was like a bank robbery. Ashley was out for a long time. And then I played her again against Kopylov. And I think that's all her fights in the UFC. Maybe missing one or something. But yeah, so I actually like Perez in terms of the fighters she was fighting before. I thought she had some upside. At minus 200, at minus 230, which is where I bet Joselyne Edwards. I bet Joselyne Edwards at plus 195, I don't really understand how you can be betting Ailin Perez here. She probably wins round 1. She's probably going to be able to get her takedowns in round 1. But in round 2, it's going to be hard to get her down. In round 3, it's going to be hard to get her down. I think Joselyne Edwards is the better striker for sure. She's longer, rangier. She's probably going to be landing shots on the feet. And I don't think Perez is going to be able to grapple her the later the fight goes. Like you said, she might even get grappled herself round 3. She might get tired herself. So at minus 230, you have to fade Ailin Perez here. And that's it.
I agree. And I love hearing that you and I are on the same side. Let's freaking go. That feels good. But I need to move. I need to get in on it because that number's moving down. And obviously, the sexier that plus number is, the more I'm going to enjoy cashing the ticket. So both of us cheering here for the barking dogs. Let's go, Joselyne Edwards. All right, everybody. Next up, we've got the return of Mickey Gall, and he's taking on Bassil Hafez. And if I had my my old setup at home, I would be pulling up a clip. I'd be getting the Austin Powers twins Bassil in here for you guys somehow, but I'm just gonna have to do it myself since I don't have my usual setup and technology. Bassil Hafez is the poor son of a bitch that the UFC brought in to lose on short notice to Jack Della Maddalena. That was the fight, James, if you recall, that really set up Jack Della being in just a beautiful position against Gilbert Burns. Shout out Gilbert Burns here at the Home of Fight, one of the boys here. I was very, very sad to have to bet against him there in that spot. But everybody was talking about how he couldn't defend a takedown. He couldn't do this. He couldn't. Well, guys, I talked about it. I think Jack Della came into that fight with his head a little in the clouds. He came into that fight thinking he was going to run through this dude. And he didn't realize just how durable Bassil Hafez was. So he jumped Gilly a couple times instead of defending a takedown. And he started working the body and was like, okay, don't worry. I'll let him take me down. I'm not in danger. I'll get back up. And then I'll get him then. And it just kept on going because you can't finish this guy. Bassil Hafez is made out of stone. He is chiseled out of granite. Like, this guy is so tough. He's so durable. His striking is a work in progress. Definitely his downside here a little bit. He's mostly a grappler, big, powerful double legs and takedowns. And he's actually apparently got some history with Mr. Mickey Gall. Turns out these two have actually had a grappling contest together. Shout out my guy, Jake, who posted that stat a little bit earlier. Apparently they did like a Naga tournament together, and that's Mickey Gall's calling card. I mean, I know both these guys are like well-rounded MMA fighters, but both of them are grappling-based MMA fighters, and Bassil Hafez has already beaten Mickey Gall purely grappling. And Mickey, as much as I like the guy, he's been on a real tough run, man. He's on a real tough skid right now. He's 1-3 in his last 4. His only win over Jordan Williams by rear naked choke. And I believe Jordan Williams has been cut from the organization since then. But Mickey has really kind of grown up in front of us, right? He was discovered way too early, pulled into the UFC way too early, got the shine on that Mike Jackson fight. And he's just been, fighting big names essentially ever since then. Like, you look at the guys he's been facing besides Jordan Williams, and it's Mike Malott, Alex Morono, Mike Perry, Diego Sanchez. Like, they're really making him earn, the paycheck they're giving him, the poor guy. So maybe he still stands to improve. He is getting better. He's got some like sneaky, weird, underrated power, even though he doesn't have any knockouts on his record. Like, he's the reason I figured out that Mike Malott was chinny, because he cracked Mike Malott with a big shot. And for a guy that doesn't have a whole lot of power, had this guy wobbling. You know what I mean? So he does the club and sub thing because he's a natural grappler. His striking is a work in progress. He's training at a good gym. Like, I'm a fan of Mickey Gall. I want to see Mickey Gall do well. But unfortunately, I'm starting to think that his ceiling just may not be high enough to really run with the UFC guys. He'll take out some of these lower level guys. He'll win the fight, the fight he needs to keep his job, but then he's going to lose to the legit guys. And he's got a 36% takedown defense. To me, that does not spell anything you want to have any kind of confidence in going up against Bassil Hafez, who's a serious grappler, a really strong wrestler, and a guy who's durable, because Mickey Gall, when he wins, he finishes. If Gall is not able to finish Bassil Hafez, I don't know how he beats him over the course of 15 minutes. So it kind of comes down to me that this is really accurate line, favorite correctly type of situation. Bassil is minus 325, Mickey Gall plus 260. And I'm kind of thinking it's Bassil by decision, just because both guys have been really tough. And even though it's his sophomore outing, I don't know how much finishing upside Bassil Hafez over Mickey Gall. Both guys are durable. Both guys are tough. I think they can hang around. So I'm going to say Hafez by decision, James. What do you think here?
I think Hafez is going to finish him, to be honest.
Oh, shit.
I think he's got the grappling upside in this fight. I think he's going to be able to get takedowns when he wants to, when he needs to. I think he's stronger than Mickey. I think the career trajectories are different, like Bassil came in, had a good fight against Jack Della Maddalena. I'm sure that he thinks he won that fight, because when I'm looking at that fight and when I rewatched it for tape study purposes, I actually thought that he potentially won the fight. So since I think he won the fight, I think he probably thinks he won the fight. So mentally, he's going to be coming into this very, very fired up, very, very ready, to put on a real performance where he has a full camp. I think he's going to show even better. And like I said, man, he's heavy on top. He's got good grappling, bro. Like, JDM couldn't do anything from bottom. And JDM, he got up from Gilbert a few times. Like, the guy can get up, you know what I mean? Against Bassil Hafez, got up a couple of times. But I don't know. I was impressed with Hafez, the way he was able to keep Jack Della Maddalena down. Before the UFC, he's a very relentless wrestler as well. I don't see it being any different here. At the end of the day, man, Mickey Gall came into the organization off a reality TV type show, right? Dana White's looking for a fight, whatever it is. The only reason he got signed was to fight CM Punk. And then they kind of kept him on because he went 1-0 and he beat CM Punk, right? Like, that's the reason this guy is in the UFC, is to fight CM Punk. It's not to fight an up-and-comer who just arguably beat a top 10 fighter in their UFC debut. It's not to do that. I think the level difference is going to be shown here. And I think Hafez is going to finish him on the mat, probably.
Okay. All right. I like it. I don't have anything on Hafez at this point, but I think he's probably a half-decent parlay leg. He's the right price to be chucked into a parlay. I don't mind the finishing call. we'll see what happens, man. At least we're on the same side. I like that we agree on who's going to end up winning this fight, man. Next fight up, we've got Niko Price and Alex the Great White Morono. They're making my boys fight, James. I hate when they do this to me. When you've got two guys that you're like sneaky a fan of and they pit them against each other, they're headed in different directions in their career. I don't want to watch one of them go down. I don't want to watch one of them get nuked. It's unfortunate. You know what I mean? Alex Morono, a guy that I've been raving about for a real long time. I believed in him before anybody else did. But now that everyone is aware of just how good he is, he's almost overpriced, man. Like, he comes into these fights and he's like a minus 200, minus 300 favorite now because everyone knows what he's capable of. But damn, like, he also has spots where he lets down. He also has spots where he just doesn't fight, to his optimal self. The dude will throw hands. He hits decently hard, but he's more of a volume guy than he is like a sheer one hitter quitter type guy. We talk every single fight breakdown about how Alex Morono refuses to wrestle, even though he's a BJJ black belt and probably could submit a lot of guys that he fights. His opponent in this spot, I don't know what to do with Niko Price, James. I really don't. He is 1-4-1 in his last 6. I gave this guy that death touch moniker a while ago. He hits really freaking hard, and it's that awkward fighter freakish strength where like he's got that TKO from bottom position where like it's like an upward back fist elbow that he threw, not elbow, sorry, like a hammer fist that he threw from like his back. He can crack, man. Like, this guy's got stupid strength from anywhere in the fight, but he just doesn't seem to have it when he's fighting some of these higher level guys. He's been taking on a decent level of competition, but then he gets knocked out in 40 seconds in Robbie Lawler's retirement fight. Like, the one guy to really ride off into the sunset besides Khabib in MMA is Robbie Lawler, and that's because he slept Niko Price. I mean, all that damage is catching up with him. Niko's whole game plan was basically run forward and my face will take more damage than yours will. And that's how he won a lot of fights. And it just seems like he's finally paying that bill here, man. He's physical. He's strong. He's not really doing anything, though. He didn't move to a bigger gym. He didn't go get an all-star coach that's going to really help him in his MMA career. Like, he's just getting back in there and scrapping again. But he's going to have a decent size advantage in this spot, just like physically speaking. He's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage over Morono. And Morono is a guy who's been caught by the power strugglers or the power punchers before, man. He struggles with these guys that are fringe contenders, and he struggles with the power punchers. And that's where it's a question for me, because I kind of think Niko might be shot. I hate to say that. I think he might be shot, but he is exactly the guy that catches Alex Morono. Santiago Ponzinibbio, in a very close fight that Alex was probably winning, nukes him in the 3rd round. You go back to like the Chaos Williams UFC debut, round 1, put him asleep with one big shot. Like, Alex Morono only knows one direction, and that's forward. He's another guy who does a lot of damage taking and really relies on being able to take more than you. I wouldn't be shocked whatsoever if Niko reminds us how much power he has in his hands in this fight. I'm going to pick Morono to win, but I'm going to chicken out, man. I'm going to say that this is probably a fight I'd rather bet under. Niko Price by KO, I think, has me a little bit interested. Let me look at what that number is currently at. BetOnline's the only place with all the fights props out. So Price by KO is plus 350. It's not even sexy. So they're not even giving you anything extra for that, because that's kind of his path to victory here in this spot. Man, I don't like this fight at all. I'm emotionally invested. So I will probably end up passing. I think I'm going to pick Morono to go ahead and win. But that Price freakish KO would not shock me one bit.
Yeah, so first thing to mention is this is a rematch. Like, these guys have already fought before. It was a long time ago when they fought, but that's exactly what happened. Morono was better than him. He was beating him up. And the Price freaky KO happened, Watching that fight again, I thought Morono was going to knock him out in round 1. He drops him twice, not only once, but twice. At the end of the round, he drops him even harder. Some strange spinning back fist to straight combination or something like that. I watched it a few days ago. I can't remember, but he dropped him. He got on top of him. He was pounding him out. Man, another minute, he could be a first-round TKO for Alex Morono. Then, obviously, they reset. They get back to the feet. And now in the second round, the opposite thing happens. Niko Price catches him at the end of the round. The fight's not called. The round ends. Alex Morono's knocked out unconscious, kind of, but with his eyes open. And then they call it because he can't fight again. And then that fight was overturned. So it wasn't a Niko Price win because Niko Price was smoking marijuana.
Back in the good old days when fighters lost their wins for
Yeah.
weed.
Crazy stuff, man. You know, in Thailand, where I am right now, weed is legal, yeah? So you got weed shops on every single corner. And everybody smokes that. Even all the fighters, a lot of them, they go after the gym, they go and smoke joints. So it's kind of crazy how the UFC literally would ban you for smoking a bit of weed. You know, I definitely don't agree with that. Nick Diaz was the famous one. They gave him 5 years for smoking weed. 5 years for smoking weed. I don't think it's a performance enhancer. So I don't
That's
think we should
insane.
get that much. Maybe in jiu-jitsu. But anyway, back to the Niko Price story. So I could see the exact same thing happening in this fight, where Morono's like a little bit better than him technically. He's landing shots, and Niko lands something. Niko is the type of fighter that could land something on Alex because Niko will get into brawls, and sometimes Alex will get into brawls as well. He doesn't mind doing it. And Niko Price hits a lot harder than Alex Morono, is probably a little bit more durable. At this point in their career, I think the durability is kind of evened out a little bit because Niko Price is coming off 2 knockout losses. But obviously, he gets knocked out in most of his fights anyway, right? The only fight I think he hasn't been finished in was the Michel Pereira fight. All other fights he's finishing inside the distance. So although he's lost 2 in a row ITD, I mean, outside of the Robbie Lawler one, the Phil Rowe one was a close fight. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's always going to be in there. He's always going to be swinging. He hasn't had that many performances where he's just got completely blown out. So I could see this being a little bit of a back and forth war, but I definitely have to favor Alex Morono, man. Even though he got knocked out in the first fight, if you go back and watch that fight, he almost knocked him out 2 or 3 times. He was the much better technical striker. He has way more shots in his arsenal. You know, Niko Price, when he turns it up, yeah, he throws flying knees and stuff. But Alex Morono has almost every shot in his arsenal. You know, people like to clown him. And it's understandable. You know, you said that he doesn't use his jiu-jitsu a lot. It's because he's very unathletic. So I don't think he can get the fight to the ground easily because of how unathletic he is. He's going to need to catch a kick and sweep you or do some single leg or something. My guy ain't shooting double legs across the mat, and he's not very fluid in the wrestling, right? So he prefers to stay on the feet, and on the feet, I think he could get into a brawl here. But I have to favor him even in a brawl. So yeah, man, I think Alex Morono is going to get the win, but this ain't a fight that I would like to bet any money line on. If I was going to bet any money line, probably bet Niko Price, but I'm not going to do it. He could be washed, and he was getting fucked up the first fight, you know? So yeah, I'm probably going to leave the fight. I don't know what odds they're giving me on like the under 2.5 rounds or something because it finished.
I'm seeing minus 120.
What? For 2.5?
That seems like a play, doesn't it?
Yeah, 2.5. Are you sure 2.5 rounds is 120, my man?
Let's see here. I'm looking at DraftKings 2.5 minus 130. Looks like it's moving as we speak.
That'll be getting a bit of my money. You know, I'm sure it'll move like to minus 140 after this podcast because you motherfuckers ain't gonna. You know what? I'm gonna bet it right now.
Oh my god!
Because I know you motherfuckers are gonna try and make the line move, and I got a bet with. Actually, I shouldn't say that. But yeah, Clint. Basically, I think probably someone gets knocked out. Probably Niko Price. I'm not gonna go crazy on it because both of these fighters are wild cards at this point in their career. For me, a lot of volatility with where they're at in their career. But I'm gonna play the under.
I agree with you. I like it. And yeah, I hope that number isn't just absolutely blasted by the time we get off the show so I can make an official pick on that under before it gets out of control. Because, yeah, I'm with you. I like that too, man. All right, guys, I do have to apologize. We got a little lucky there. I just noticed that my battery saver turned on, and I was like, why is it doing that? The plug I used for my laptop apparently is a bad one, and we could have just lost the whole podcast. So I switched plugs real quick while James was talking. We're plugged in, we got power, we're good, but I had to turn the light off, unfortunately. So I'm going to look even less sexy than I did at the beginning of the show, which is hard to believe, but it's true. So we're going to just get through this any way we can, but I've got power. We're good. We're okay. All right, everybody. Next up, we've got Phil Rowe taking on Jake Matthews, and the first bet that I actually already have locked in here on this card, James. I'm very excited for this one. I went ahead and took a 2-unit shot here on Phil Rowe, plus 136. Man, this just seems like another spot where it's almost 2 different directions going here. Now, Jake Matthews is another fighter a lot like Mickey Gall, where we've really seen him kind of evolve and grow in front of us. He got to the UFC at a very young level. The majority of his career has been spent at this level. And I just keep waiting for him to get over that hump. And he just keeps not quite being able to do it, man. He'll put together 2 or 3 good wins, and then he gets that step up in competition and he fumbles it, or he'll make a dumb mistake. He's one of these guys that'll fall off a good position. He lets people get out of spots that they shouldn't. He's got good boxing. He does have a full 15 minutes of cardio. He's decently durable, but he will also accept bottom position in some cases and let people bully him and play jiu-jitsu off of his back instead of being, the bully himself. He's got 3 losses by submission, so it seems like the grappling defense is a little questionable in some places. And most of his wins recently, if you guys look at the record of our guy Jake Matthews, most of those wins are guys that do not have a job in the UFC anymore. Now, I overrated Darius Flowers, but he took that guy out of there on short notice. Short notice, mind you. A guy with a poor gas tank coming in on short notice. That was an obvious spot for anybody with eyes, and I think I still managed to miss that one. He knocked out Andre Fialho, Diego Sanchez, Emil Meek. I mean, like, he doesn't have anybody that's any good in the last 5 years that he's fought in the UFC. And then his losses are by choke to Anthony Rocco Martin, who's retired, Sean Brady, who, even though he's on a tear, he is finishing this guy. The Matt Simmelsberger decision doesn't look fantastic in hindsight. And his recent fight with Michael Morales, they went a full hard 15 minutes. And I can't really knock him for that fight, but he struggled with the distance. He struggled with the range. And that brings me to Phil Rowe. Phil Rowe is getting better, man. Even though this guy is a little bit older, he's 33 years old, you can see the improvements every single time he steps into the cage. And his last fight, he failed, just barely failed, against my guy, the ultimate gatekeeper, Neil Magny. It was a classic Neil Magny fight, man. He forced this man to fight his pace, and whenever that happens, you get drowned in the quicksand that is Neil Magny. He lost a split decision, but it was close. He almost had it, but you could see the improvement in his hands. Phil Rowe is a long, lanky, stud jiu-jitsu player who's really turning his attention to his striking. And since he's done that, he's looked really nasty on the feet, man. And we're talking about Niko Price earlier in the night. This guy just knocked him out in the 3rd round. We're talking about Jason Witt. He's a chinny guy. We know that, but he knocked him out in the 2nd round. He's a guy that has questionable competition in the UFC as well, but he is handling them. And that big step up against Neil Magny, even an older, an aged, a withered Neil Magny, fighting that closely with that guy, I've got nothing but respect for Neil Magny. That speaks volumes to me in this spot. I think at worst case scenario, this thing should be a pick'em. You could argue ever so slightly that maybe Phil Rowe could be favored. I think Jake Matthews is the better wrestler. I think Phil Rowe is probably the better striker and the better jiu-jitsu player. And because of that, I would mark him ever so slightly the favorite in this spot. On top of that, he's going to have a 7-inch reach advantage. I think Jake's going to have to kind of fight the perfect fight here, James. And if he doesn't fight the perfect fight, then I think Phil has a lot more ways to win this thing. And because of what we've seen from Jake in the past, I just don't think that he's mentally capable of fighting that perfect fight. I think at some point he'll deviate from the plan. At some point, he'll mix it up at the wrong time. At some point, he'll make a mistake. And I think Phil Rowe is going to be there to snatch a neck when he does. So Phil Rowe, knockout, sub, decision, they're all on the table. I'll say sub. I'll say sub. I'll say Phil Rowe by sub. But I think Phil wins this fight, and I like me a dog shot here, James. What about you?
Yeah, nice, bro. I don't have too much, to say about this one, so I'm glad you did. I think it's just a tough fight to call. I think it's a fight where I'm not very interested in it. I mean, Phil Rowe is a little bit of a wild card himself. Sometimes he shows up, sometimes he doesn't. He can let minutes get away from him as well. He's a little bit more low volume that you would expect for someone with usually a frame and reach advantage. He can probably keep people away with jabs and 1-2s, but sometimes he doesn't really throw as much as he should. He can be taken down. But Jake Matthews is a weird fighter, man. I bet on Jake Matthews against Andre Fialho, but outside of that, I don't think I've ever bet on him before because I just don't know what we're getting with Jake Matthews. Sometimes he comes in and looks like a world beater against Fialho. But at that point, I didn't rate Fialho, and Jake Matthews was the underdog with much more UFC experience. So it was kind of an easy bet for me. But then sometimes he comes in with a fight that, in my opinion, is pretty easy to win skill set for skill set. Matthew Semmelsberger versus Jake Matthews. And then Jake doesn't shoot takedowns as much as he should. And it's like, he could just sub him, but he decides to kickbox him for a lot, and then he ends up losing a decision. It's like, he's not a good fighter to back. Do you know what I mean? Because you just don't know what you're going to get. So I'd rather play Phil Rowe in this spot, especially as the underdog. But I could just see this being some BS type fight that, like, you're just going to get pissed off on whatever bet you have. I feel like they both can make mistakes. I feel like both fighters could look minus EV, even at their lines. Like, it's just a weird fight, man. But yeah, I think Phil Rowe's the side, though. Like, if I was going to play anything, it would be Phil Rowe, to be honest. So, you know, good luck on your shot. I don't think I'll get there, though.
Appreciate it. Fair enough, man. Yeah, I think it's dog or pass. I think Phil has more ways to win, and because of that, as a dog, I'll go ahead and take a shot at it there. We'll see what happens. Could be a maddening night at the office here for me with that play, but we'll see what happens. I like that side. All right, everybody, real quick here. Next up, we have got Grant Dawson. He's back. KGD. Taking on Joe Zaleski. And, the very first thing I wanted to do looking at this fight, James, was throw up in my mouth a little bit. I just was like, oh, what a gross fight. Like, it's grappler versus grappler. It's a guy who arguably got the hardest fraud check of the last 2 years in his last fight. Like, blah. Like, I actually left this one for last, James. Whenever I'm doing my research for these fights, I start bottom where I know the least, and then I work my way to the top. So that way, if it's showtime and I run out of time to do my research, I know the marquee fighters. We've seen them fight. They've been made events before. Like, those are the ones I remember the most clearly. So I saved them for last. Well, I skipped this fight and I left it for last because I was like, man, this is going to be a terrible, like, grappler versus grappler spot. And I just don't want to put the time and effort into it. I finished up all my other research and I had time to go through and actually run this one. And when I did, I found myself very surprised. I parlayed Grant Dawson this week, James. I was not expecting to say that. He's a big favorite in this spot, and I know it's terrifying to parlay up somebody like this who's untrustworthy, who's been knocked out a couple times, who just got styled on by Bobby Green in round one, something you do not ever see. But God dang, he is such a bad matchup for Joe Zaleski. He's kind of the worst case scenario for Joe Zaleski. I said in a couple of recent shows that we don't see the UFC really give people like that leg up. We don't see them get that step down in competition where the UFC is like, hey, here's a low ball. Let's get you back on track like they did for Adrian Yanez a couple of weeks ago. But that's what this is. That's exactly what this is. They've got a guy from a good camp who's captured the imagination of the gambling and MMA public before, who got outed in his last fight. They gave him some time off. He's young. He's improving. And they went, you know what? Let's give him a good fight to make sure he gets back on track. Joe Zaleski has come on getting slammed unconscious by Drakkar Klose. It was a little bit ago, 6 months ago, something like that. So questionable if he's going to be able to make that turnaround and come back and be completely healthy. But this is a guy who, if he can't get the grappling going and control his opponents, he struggles. He is not that great of a striker. He's a decent boxer, James, but he's just got no power. There's going to be no respect. He can't back anybody up. He can't do anything with his hands whatsoever. And right there is kind of the key. Bobby Green is a guy that we know has power. He's just usually death by 1,000 cuts and doesn't really sit down on anything. When Bobby Green wants to finish people, he can. And that's where I don't think Joe's even got that ability. Like, even if he wanted to crack Dawson on the chin, I don't think it's going to do much to him. So it's going to be mostly a grappling match. Joe Zaleski gets exhausted grappling. He's always tired in round 3. If he doesn't finish you in round 1 or 2, which he can, he's got a nasty guillotine on him. He's got a real tight squeeze on him. He could get you out of there. But if he doesn't, he is exhausted and looking for control in round 3. That's what this guy survives on. Grant Dawson, on the other hand of things, he looks like he's tired, but he pushes. He just keeps going. He's got 3 round 3 finishes in his last couple of fights. So Grant Dawson is going to be bigger, more physical. He's going to be the better grappler, in my opinion, of the two. He's going to have the better striking of the two. I mean, the only question is the durability, and I don't think Joe has any power. So this all lined up to, holy shit, that's a Dawson spot. And I think Joe Zaleski is going to tire out from the grappling like we've seen him do in the past. And I think we're actually going to get another Grant Dawson finish. Now, James, I'm really pissed off because the last couple of times I've called round 3 finishes, the fighters have been so much in the driver's seat They finish in round 2 instead. Thanks, Angela Hill, for not giving me my round 3 finish like I called and instead getting a round 2 finish and costing me looking like a genius. I'm going to call the round 3 finish here for Grant Dawson yet again. I will not be shocked if he gets it done in round 2, James. And frankly, I actually think he might get it done by KO. Zaleski has never been submitted, and he's been knocked out twice. And Grant Dawson is really aggressive with his ground and pound. I could see him going to work with the ground and pound. And with these jiu-jitsu guys, they've got that chip on their shoulder. They don't want to tap. They've never tapped before. I don't want to tap. You'll have to kill me before I tap. Now, Dawson could still grab a neck after he gets him hurt or something like that. But I more than likely think that Joe will probably shell up and the ref pulls him off. So I'm going to say Grant Dawson by knockout. I'll say round 2, round 3. Looking for those nice, sexy prices when FanDuel and DraftKings drop those numbers for me.
Yeah, you have to be careful when you're playing around 3 and you don't play the round 2. It's happened time and time again with me. Not that much anymore because I usually play round 2 if I want to play round 3 now, unless it's such
I'm going to have to start doing that.
Yeah, I usually play both, man. Like, if you go back and look at my record, you won't see many round 3 alones. You'll usually see round 3 coupled with round 2. Only over the last 2 years. For the first many years of my MMA gambling, I never used to do that. But I lost so much money doing it. I just thought, hey, it doesn't hurt to play a little bit on round 2 as well, right? Because if you're thinking someone's going to tire out, how do you know they're not going to tire out 2 minutes earlier than you said?
Exactly.
We're going on minutes here. There's very small margins. If your fighters get dead gassed in round 3, why can't they be dead gassed in round 2?
Or the head cases, Luana Pinheiro, just fold it up and go home in round 2. Take the night off early.
Yeah, it happens very, very often. So I usually don't do that anymore. Same with Joselyne Edwards. If you do play around 3, it might just be worth playing around 2 as well. But yeah, going back to this fight, you said it's going to be a bad fight, grappler versus grappler. But sometimes we get these bangers, man. Sometimes these guys just swing on the feet because they can't grapple each other. But something tells me that that's not going to happen in this one. But you never know. But I just feel like it will probably be a boring fight, like you said. Dawson will get his takedowns, and he'll win the fight via decision, probably. He definitely could finish him. But I feel like Zaleski's decent at surviving on the ground when he needs to, right? On the feet, I think he can be a bit shaky there. We haven't seen it too much in the UFC because he sells out for takedowns. But on the ground, even though he likes to play jiu-jitsu, he's pretty good at staying safe. So I could see him staying safe against Dawson here. The way I like to look at fights, right, is I like to look at both fighters, and this is something that anyone can do, and that anyone should be doing. I look at both fighters, and I analyze their strengths, weaknesses, as we all do, and then I try to find out, or in my head, I try to imagine how many ways this fight can play out, and I try to be as honest as possible. I try to take away my bias as much as possible, and say to myself, okay, can Joe Zaleski win via decision, and how does that look? Can Joe Zaleski win via KO? How does that look? And I do the same for KO, submission, and decision for both fighters. And when I look at the Joe Zaleski side for this fight, like, can he win a decision? Okay, how does that look? Does he get Grant Dawson's back for 2 rounds, but he can't submit him? And then he ends up winning via control time? Does he win on the feet? Is he really going to win on the feet consistently over 15 minutes if the fight's on the feet? Grant Dawson can get his leg kicks going. Joe Zaleski's a better boxer, cleaner boxer, but I don't think for extended combinations. I think Zaleski has a decent right hook uppercut or some shit like that, and then he's kind of drawing thin after that. I don't think he's got a jab. I don't think he's got a great jab. I don't think he offers much on the feet. A decision would shock me for Joe Zaleski because I just feel like for that to happen, you need some very low probability things to happen, back takes, etc., etc. So then we look at the KO submission. And I do that for everything. And what I came out time and time again was that Joe's just got a hard time to win this fight, man. Like, he could sub anyone, right? I used to call him Joe Gracie because the guy, when he gets on top or when he gets your back, is very, very elite. He's very, very good at that position. Those positions. He's a good black belt. He's a legit black belt. He flows from position to position very nicely. But I rescinded the Joe Gracie name. I took it away from him when I realized that he's got no bottom game. He just likes to sit, play guard, and he don't even have much outside of an armbar. And even when he puts the armbar on, he gets slammed on his head, right? Because this ain't jiu-jitsu, this is MMA.
Yep.
Obviously, that might not happen again, right? But I can see that happening here. He tries to armbar Dawson. Dawson slams the guy on his head. But
He's
I
mostly a
just
neck
feel like
guy, I noticed. He likes to go for chokes. He's got a decent front choke series.
who Zaleski?
Selecki, yeah. Like if you watch the oh shoot, what's his name? Silva, Alex de Silva. Like I'm kind of surprised he didn't
Yeah.
finish him. He had him in a couple of deep chokes in that fight.
Yeah. I mean, Seleki's great jiu-jitsu, man, just in general, bro. Really good
Mhm.
jiu-jitsu. But and I think he works from the back. I think his best position is his back take and his rear naked choke. But Grant Dawson's going to have to give it to him for the most part, because like Grant Dawson is the much better wrestler in this fight. So he's going to be the one controlling where the fight takes place. One of the reasons why wrestling is, kind of worldly, globally considered as the best base for MMA is because you choose where the fight takes place. I don't think Seleki's going to be choosing where this fight takes place. If Grant Dawson is kicking his leg apart on the feet, he can just decision him that way. If it's not going well, he can take him down. I don't think he's going to get caught in a guillotine. I mean, it's possible, but I think Grant Dawson has been in those positions on the mat his entire life, even with wrestling, then moving on to jiu-jitsu. So he should be okay with the guillotine. And what happens if you don't get the guillotine? You end up in guard. It happened in the Alex de Silva fight, like you end up playing from your back, and Zaleski will do that. And I don't like that for him in this fight. So I think Grant Dawson's going to get the win. I think he probably wins via decision. And that's it.
Okay, man, I fully recognize the decision threat here, and that's why I parlayed Grant Dawson. I want the money line. I don't want to have to pick a finish. I don't want to have to pick KO or sub. I think he can do them all, and especially if Joselyne gets tired, sub and KO are both going to be on the table for him. So I'm with you. I think decision probably most likely. So that's why I went ahead and threw him in a parlay leg. Just please, for the love of God, don't have like a dusted, crispy chin. I don't think you will. He took some time off. I think the first one was a little bit of a fluke. We'll see though. Maybe that bites me right in the ass. But I'm like,
Zaleski ain't the one to bring it out. I don't think Zaleski's going to bring out his chin. Like at the end of the day, Bobby Green, he's a very sharp shooter. And when you're a sharp shooter, every once in a while, even if you haven't got power, every once in a while you're going to hurt someone badly. If you can shoot fast, sharp, straight down the middle, you can land a shot that can knock anyone out, even without power. I don't think Zaleski's that type of guy. He's more of a clubbing guy. If they hit the boxing machine, those machines you get in like arcades where you punch it and it goes up, right? Zaleski might even get close to Bobby Green's number. Like, I don't think both of them hit hard, but Green's way cleaner, way faster, and he just caught Grant Dawson cold early in the fight. If Zaleski knocked out Grant Dawson, bro, I will be massively surprised. This is MMA, so it surprises me every week. But this would be the surprise of the week for sure.
I think the TKO victory would more be like Grant Dawson would have to bite him. Grant Dawson gets DQ'd for biting Joselyne. That's how that works. All right, everybody. Real quick here, we got to shout out the sponsors. First and foremost, of course, this is the home of fight. And right here in the description of the video, guys, check out the Telegram link. James, I was telling everybody before, I know you've got a Telegram, but I didn't know people did big-time Telegrams. And Home of Fight has got a pretty solid one going on. And it's like a fight news type of Telegram. You want breaking news, you want current events, everything in the world of MMA, that's what this Telegram is offering, and it's a fun place to hang out with other fight fans. So go ahead and click that link in the description of this video to go ahead and join us over there. Next up, Spectation Sports. We have talked about it before. We get to see fighters on the rise here on Spectation Sports. It is better than Fight Pass. They've got a lot of really cool organizations. Cage Titans just last week had an amazing show. There was no UFC, but we still had fights. You can get that at Spectation Sports. Promo code DIEHARD will give you a 20% discount on your subscription. All in Combat is coming up. Lights Out Champion 16 is coming up. So we got stuff right around the corner. Next up, promo code DIEHARD. I got a link for you guys as well. Fight numbers. Our guy John Kelly, regular guest on the show. Real sharp guy, real smart guy. He has fight numbers, and he's got a team of people, including like Pepe, who was a guest very recently, one of the sharpest guys in the game. They're all together making this thing. It has brought me worlds of value when it comes to my DraftKings stuff. They've got DraftKings tools and numbers in here. This is my favorite place to go for line shopping. You can see what the lines are and where they are. It's more accurate than some of the other tools that I used to use. They've got projections, they've got pros picks. Check out Fight Numbers, you guys. It's a real cool site, and we're supporting our guy John Kelly when we use it. Last but certainly not least, Bet Openly right here, sponsored for your boy. We are running the gauntlet, guys. We are over halfway through the gauntlet. We've got 2 weeks left. We're giving away $600. First place is $300, second place is $200, third place is $100 on a $50 bankroll challenge. It's been a good time. It's our second time going around doing it. We'll hopefully, fingers crossed, hey, if we get some traction, if the people want it, if we shout out to our boy Gino, maybe we can go ahead and do a third one. So guys, get at him on social media. Let him know that you're enjoying the product. And also, you're just going to get the best numbers anywhere in the game using it. 1% juice. The winner's the only one who pays that juice. So because of it being peer-to-peer, you have better numbers on everything. We were just talking about Joselyne Edwards, and I can get her for plus 185. And you go, man, why would you ever get plus 185, though? Nobody's going to give you plus 185. Well, it's because on the favorite side, you get a better number also. Ailin Perez is minus 220 in other places. You only have to lay minus 185 here. So it's literally 1% juice. And again, only the winner pays it. So every single number you want to bet on is better at Bet Openly. It's a tool that's going to save us money as gamblers moving forward. You're going to get better numbers on everything, and that is better than any bonus anybody gives you. Because it's peer-to-peer, they're not going to limit you. It's a great tool, you guys. I've been betting MLB nonstop. Guys, I'm in California, okay? And sports betting is illegal in California. This is the secret weapon here because Bet Openly is technically DFS. It is technically DFS, and DFS is legal in the state of California. I've been betting baseball all week because the site works. So you can't get FanDuel, DraftKings, stuff like that in California, but what you can get in California is Bet Openly. So make sure you check your state because they will be legal in some places where sports betting has not been legalized. In some places, it's a wonderful tool. It's an additional out. And as gamblers, that's all we want is more outs. All right, guys. We will get back to the show here. I am joined by James from Lucrative MMA Betting, and this is the home of fight. We're talking UFC 302, and the next fight up is Roman Kopylov taking César Almeida, and I love this fight, James. I love this fight so much. So César has already put some money in my pocket. César's a guy that I've already been to war with in the UFC. I was a little skeptical at first. You know, it seemed like a bit of a gimmick. He's got a kickboxing win over none other than Alex Perez. And Alex Perez. That's the wrong weight class. Alex Pereira. He's actually 1-2 against Pereira. So he's on the losing end of that equation, but he does have that claim to fame that he beat him the one time. But the UFC saw what he can do, and they put him on the Alex Pereira game plan, right? He's making his UFC debut not too long ago. They give him a guy who can test him, push him, maybe a little bit. Both guys on Contender Series and Dylan Bucka in his UFC debut, they can grapple a bit. And you can really see that this guy is not what's his biscuit? What's the guy that lost me my freaking parlay?
Give me some guess. What does he look like?
Robelis Despain. You know, you get these studs from other combat sports that try to move over to MMA, and they just think, I got it. It's fine. I can do it. This guy ain't that, okay? He's shown takedown defense. He's shown scramble ability. He's shown that he's working on the well-rounded MMA game so he can actually put his striking to use. He's not going to be a fish out of water on his back when somebody tries to take him down. He knows how to work to the cage. He knows how to stand up. So he's proven that in his first 2 fights under the UFC banner. And then you know what they do, James? They go, okay, so you're kind of legit then. We're going to put your ass on a pay-per-view, and we're going to give you a kickboxer. So what are they doing for him here? They're saying, you don't have to worry about the takedown. You don't have to worry about the grappling. You're on a pay-per-view card now. We want people to know you. We want people to become familiar with you, and we're going to give you a guy that is not as good as you at what you do. And that's exactly what this fight is to me, man. Roman Kopylov is a guy that I've been a fan of. We've gone to war with the older brother of Chase Hooper several times. I like Roman Kopylov. He's 33 years old, though. And he's another striker turned MMA fighter who really did well with the counter grappling. He worked very, very hard. When he came to the UFC, first thing that happened, got choked out by Carl Roberson. Got taken down, dragged around the mat, tapped out. you're not going to last here doing that shit. Sorry, got a tickle. I'm dying.
Bless you, bro.
Oh.
Bless you.
Sorry, everybody. Had to hit the mute button real quick. So, Roman Kopylov gets tapped out in his UFC debut by Karl Roberson. What do they do in his second fight? They give him Albert freaking Duraev. Lamb to the slaughter. He takes some time off, works on his counter grappling game, and then they give him some middle of the road guys that aren't going to look to grapple, guys that are going to look to strike. Let's have a little bit of fun. Alessio Di Chirico, Haley Soriano, Claudio Hiberio, Josh freaking Fremd. Like, he's been scraping the bottom of the barrel as far as opposition goes in the UFC and has been just lighting it up. So now that he's fun, now that he's got a name, now that people are familiar with him, they throw him back into the thick of it and they give him Fluffy. Anthony Hernandez absolutely melts this man and just completely destroys him. He's done, guys. Like, I love Roman Kopylov. I do. I really do. He's going to be a fun fighter. He'll be around for a while. He'll get some wins. He'll be around, but he's not a contender. He's not going to be a guy that cracks into the top 5. He's not a title challenger. And I think that's what we've all kind of realized at this point. So they're giving the guy that has some steam, a guy that's got some heat, a guy who's got a claim to glory. And they're going, we're going to give you a guy who will fight your fight, but not be quite as good at it as you are. And then I look at the number, James, and they're giving me plus money on César Almeida. Are you kidding me? Like, this guy should be favored, guys. He straight up should be the favorite in this fight. He's the better kickboxer. He's got far more experience. He's got power, and grappling is not going to play a part in this fight. And frankly, if it does, Kopylov is not a good enough grappler to make it work for him. So this is going to be a striking match, and César is just miles ahead in that realm. So, Dog of the week, everybody. Link Memorial Dog of the week is César Almeida. I put 4 units on him. I got plus 105, James. It looks to me like this line is headed for pick'em. It looks to me like this line is headed for flipping. I believe César Almeida will be the favorite by the time the fight rolls around on Saturday. And I know some people are scared because of what happened with Robles to Spain, but I do not think this guy is cut from the same cloth. And I think it's a great fight for him. I think it's another spot where the UFC is giving him good matchmaking. I fully expect him to get the win here in this spot. Don't tell me I'm crazy, James. What are you doing here on this one? I love this spot.
So I got a max bet on Roman Kopylov this weekend. And no, I'm only joking, bro. I'm only joking. I feel like you're going to cash your bet, man. I like César Almeida.
Let's go.
I think that this is going to be a stand-up fight, and César probably should get the best of it. I don't think... in MMA striking, I don't think they're miles apart. It's kind of hard to judge César a little bit. He hasn't had a lot of fight time, right? He hasn't had a lot of fight time at all. The Contender Series fight is probably the fight that you look at the most. It went the longest, and he performed well in that fight. I can't remember the guy's name. Is it Lucas Fernando or something? I forget his name now. But the guy he fought was a good fighter, in my opinion. I think he's gone on to lose, actually. I think I checked that the other day. Did that guy go on to lose his next fight or something?
It was Lucas Fernando. You are correct.
Yeah.
And he did go on to lose his next fight, but he rebounded from that with a win. So he's 1-1 since his Contender Series fight.
Yeah, I think
and he lost to a very scary looking Russian.
Yeah. I think he's a good fighter, to be honest.
I do too.
So that was actually impressive. I bet on César Almeida in that spot, plus 200. And I didn't think he would win the way he won, right? I thought he might knock him out early. I didn't think he'd be able to grapple him, reverse positions with some jiu-jitsu, end up on top, win the grappling contest. Obviously it was on the feet for a little bit there too. So he impressed me in that fight. I bet against him in the Booker fight, which was a really bad bet. I just hold my hands up and have no excuses towards that one. I didn't actually watch it live. Didn't watch the whole fight, to be honest, but I watched it after. I watched like the finish and whatnot. I think that this fight's going to be a striking fight, right? So everything I've seen from César on the feet, in the Lucas Fernando fight, in the Booker fight, and previous when he's getting 10-second knockouts, he looks good enough to probably beat Roman Kopylov. I think that he's going to be able to land something hard. And I don't know if Kopylov mentally is all there when the going gets tough. You know, in the Carl Robertson fight, it was a very, very bad look. I know it was his debut, but it was just a bad look, man. He got his calf beat up and he basically quit on the ground because of his calf, right? His leg was completely done. I can't remember if it was the leg or the calf, but his leg was, the thigh or the calf. But anyway, his leg was completely done. I think it was the calf kicks. And he mentally quit there, in my opinion. And now he's coming in off that finish against Fluffy again. He's been finished in both of his losses. I remember Ribeiro knocked him down in round 1. I actually bet on Ribeiro plus 200 there. And I've bet on Kopylov most fights, man. I bet on Kopylov a lot, right? I bet on him. I bet on him when no one thought he was good. When he was plus 140 against Punahele Soriano. Do you remember those days? Everyone thought he was everyone thought he was a bad fighter because he lost.
I was there with you on that one. I cashed that ticket.
Nice, bro. Yeah, everyone thought he was a bad fighter, but he actually ended up being a decent fighter. But I think it's time to get off the train now. Like last fight, I bet on Fluffy Hernandez. Quite a big bet. Bet on him in round 2. Quite a lot of props. And I think it continues here, you know, his loss streak. I think it extends to 2. It's a close fight, though. Like, Kopylov can land some kicks on the feet. I do think he's good, but yeah, Almeida's just been there too many times in his striking contest. He probably will win it, bro. I don't mind a bet on him. I hope he's still plus money market wide. I think he is. I might make that bet. We'll see.
All right. I love to hear it, man. Yeah, he's my dog of the week. And frankly, I wouldn't have any problem laying short chalk on him, man. If I had completed my study of this fight and he was minus 135, I'd still lay it. You know what I mean? Like I would still play it even if he was short chalk. So no problem. If the line has flipped, hopefully you guys can snag a little bit of plus money. My guy VB in the chat seems to agree with me. Shout out VB. VB is doing a show and he's going to go live apparently this evening as well. So make sure you support him. He's been a guest on the pod and he's a good friend of the show as well. A very sharp capper as well. So check out VB. I believe he's going to be live this evening after we're done here. But I'm glad you agree with me, man. I love this spot for Cesar Almeida. Big bet here. Link Memorial Dog of the Week gets back on track. I'm fully expecting a finish, and it's a quick turnaround for both guys. But one of them's coming off a spectacular win, and the other one's coming off of getting flatlined and beaten to shreds, and then broken and tapped out. And it's just a 3-month turnaround. Like that's the kind of thing that I'm not. Roman Kopylov is not being set up for success in this fight. So not only do I think I've got the more skilled and more talented fighter, but I think the position and the fight itself, the booking favors him also. So here we go. Let's go Cesar Almeida. Let's keep this gravy train rolling, baby. All right. Next fight, we've got Randy Rude Boy Brown. He takes on Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, Capoeira himself, in a spot where I think I need to pass James. And I know I shouldn't start the breakdown by telling you guys that I'm not betting this fight, but anybody who's watched this show for any significant amount of time knows I suck at betting Randy Brown fights. Like there's a couple fighters that you can just bank on, whether it's betting on them, betting against them. You zig when you're supposed to zag, you're ducking, you're weaving, you're cashing every single ticket. Those people are your money trains. But there's fighters that are the exact opposite of that spectrum. There's fighters that you just cannot get right. And it doesn't matter how much time you spend. It doesn't matter how much effort you put in. They do the thing that you're least expecting when you said that they wouldn't do it. And for me, that's Randy Brown. I cannot seem to get this guy right. I mean, I think I picked him to beat Muslim Slikov, but I was too chicken shit to trigger and put a bet on him. I'm pretty sure I bet Wellington Turman against him, and he lost that fight. The only success I've had on this guy whatsoever was I bet Jack Della Maddalena against him. I did get that one, but that was nothing to write home about because Jack was like a minus 350 favorite. I tried to bet against him with Chaos Williams. I tried to bet against him with Jared Gooden. Like Randy Brown just keeps on taking my money, man, and I'm done. Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, he's getting up there. 37 years old. Love the guy. He's got all the big flying knees, spinning shit. Beat the brakes off of Renat Fakhretdinov in their last fight, man. It was one where he got dropped early. It looked like the fight was over. Like Renat had this man on skates about 30 seconds into the fight. and he kept his wits about him. He worked his way back up to the feet, and then he proceeded to beat the body of Rinat Fakhretdinov so badly with the front kicks and the knees that he had this guy collapsing on himself in the third round. He was exhausted. He had nowhere to go. He had no avenue to win. The takedowns weren't coming as easily anymore. It looked like Elizeu Zaleski was going to finish him in that third round. Instead, we get a draw because we had a 10-8, and then Elizeu came back and damn near won the fight. So we get a draw instead, but it should be a win. You know what I mean? He's coming in feeling like he won that fight. He's feeling good about himself at 37 years old. Randy Brown is a guy that, like I said, I just can't make sense of. I feel like he's a little low volume sometimes, but then he's also really fast. He's got super accurate hands and he's got decent power, but he's also a little chinny. He's got good opportunistic jiu-jitsu. He's got chokes, but he fights close sometimes. Like, man, it just seriously, like every time I think of an angle for Randy Brown, I can find an argument to go against it. And because of that, I'm going to pass. You've got Randy Brown as short chalk here in this spot. Seems like a lot of people are jumping in on Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, and I understand why. I am tempted to get that plus 145 here myself on Elizeu Zaleski. If somebody's going to catch and chin Randy Brown, it's somebody with the power of Elizeu Zaleski, but I also think the speed and the footwork of Randy Brown could make it hard for those spinning wheel kicks to land. It's going to make it tough for someone like Zaleski to find Randy Brown for those big power shots that he looks to land in the cage. So I will tentatively pick Randy Brown to win this fight, even though I don't like it, and I'm definitely not betting it. James, do you have a bet here? Can you give the people something they can sink their teeth into?
No. Sorry. Apologies. But I will do my best in breaking the fight down. And I don't have too much more to say, but I think Randy Brown should be able to stay safe. I think his footwork is better. I think he sees shots better. I think he's younger. I think he's more in his prime. He's not as shot born. He's not as washed. This is a big thing in MMA, you know, when fighters get a little bit over the hill. What else is there? I think the speed of Randy Brown is just faster at this time. I think probably always, you know, Randy Brown's sharp shooter, straight shooter. I wouldn't be surprised if he hurts Zaleski. Zaleski got hurt by Rinat in round 1. I bet on Zaleski in that fight, but, you know, and obviously it turned out well. I mean, he didn't win the fight, but it was a draw. It turned out like a good bet, plus 300 or whatever. But, you know, he was almost knocked out in round 1, almost instantly. It was like the first shot he took, he was on the fence, he was wobbled. It's not a great look. I think Randy Brown can hurt him on the feet. If not, he should probably just outpoint him to a decision. I understand why people would want to take the shot on Zaleski. Obviously, he's wild. He brings some volatility into the matchup. Like, no matter who he's fighting, there's always a chance he's going to land a flying knee knockout or something like that, right? He digs to the body, he hits hard. He's got a wide striking toolbox. So I understand, you know, wanting to bet him in any fight, really, because he's always going to have some type of chance to get the finish. And then Randy Brown is fragile. We've seen time and time again, Randy Brown gets put in bad positions. I remember he almost got finished by Wally Alves in the first round, right?
Yes.
And I think he finished him in round 2. It just shows you how vulnerable he is, because he should be miles above someone like Wally Alves. But in that fight, it was close to you know, being finished, or at least it was a chance of him being finished. He's been rocked, wobbled, dropped by Chaos Williams in a fight that I bet on Randy Brown in that fight. And again, he had me worried because, you know, he got dropped, right? He didn't get finished, but he got dropped. Jack Della Maddalena.
I thought Chaos won it, man.
From my memory, it was kind of like a cleanish win for Randy Brown, apart from the knockdown, but I could be remembering it a little bit incorrectly.
Now, a little grain of salt. I was live in the arena, and Chaos's family was sitting behind me, and I also had a bet on Chaos. So, all things considered, I could be a little biased, but I thought Chaos should have got the win.
Yeah. Well, how were the family taking it? Were they going crazy at the decision, or were they cool?
Bro, they were going nuts because they thought he had it too. You know what I mean? And the energy was different when you're live there in the stadium. You know, when the bigger shots land and you can feel like that wet meat slapping sound there live. We really thought he had it, and everybody had money on him. It was a bummer to be sitting with his people and then have him not get the win.
That's a good way to break it down. Wet meat slapping sound. I don't think I've heard that one before, brother. But there's gonna be a lot of wet meat slapping sounds in this fight. Pause or whatever the young boys say these days. But yeah, I think that Randy Brown's gonna probably just outpoint him, bro. Do his thing, outpoint him. He could land a knockout though, because I think Zaleski's like very, very weathered at this point, you know. But
Yeah.
man, he's had 2 decent performances in a row. I guess that Morono one wasn't decent, but he still got the knockout. So yeah, man, I'll pick Randy Brown. We'll see.
Okay. All right. I am right there with you. We will go ahead and pick Randy Brown, and we'll just kind of sit back and see what happens here. I wouldn't mind. Do we mind violence here, though, James? Do we think maybe an under in this spot? Because it's plus money for an under 2.5. What are your thoughts on that?
What plus money?
Like plus 125 on the under 2.5.
Yeah, like it seems like it would make sense. I mean, Randy Brown is a little bit fragile, like I said.
Yeah.
I just have a hard time seeing Zaleski finish Brown, you know. I mean, all the parts are there, right? Zaleski is a bit volatile, like I said. He will throw crazy shots. He did hurt Renat last fight. He knocked out Morono not too long ago. Like,
Yep.
Wait, sorry, no, not Morono. Some other dude, I forgot. I was mixing him with Ponzinibbio. But so that I guess Zaleski could finish. And then, like I said, Randy Brown, I think he's more likely to finish. So the parts are there. There's just something I don't like about it. I kind of think Brown's just going to, you know, Brown can play it safe. I could definitely see Brown knocking down Zaleski and then just letting him get back up to his feet and then getting behind the jab again. Sticking and moving behind the jab and doing some weird shoulder roll shit after you've got your opponent basically knocked out. Like, I could definitely see that, you know. And Zaleski showed heart many times. He showed heart in his last fight to come back late. Like, I just could see Randy knocking him down and then not finish him in. So that would be tough. I'm personally going to stay off, bro, but I can see the argument for the under at plus money for sure.
That's fair. That is fair. All right, guys, let's move right along. We got a couple fights left to get to here. We have got Jailton Almeida taking on Alexandr Romanov and James.
Damn.
I hate this fight. I hate it so much. So I don't know what it is. I've got some kind of a vendetta against Jailton Almeida. Maybe I'm just a hipster, man. I'm a hipster. He's gotten so popular. He's everybody's boy. They all love him. They all think he's just the shit. And I don't. I'm not sold. I don't think he's going to be the next, God's chosen champion of this weight class. I felt like 205 was a whole lot better for him than heavyweight is. He's smaller at heavyweight. And even though the skill set is a little thin for most at heavyweight, so he can probably get up there and do some damage. Like, I just think that the top 6-7 guys are going to cause him problems. And I just hate the price tags that we get on him. Like, I always want to bet against them because you can always get a really great number trying to go the other way. He's a wonderful jiu-jitsu practitioner. His ground and pound is really, really good. And he's got decent wrestling for a BJJ guy. That's always kind of my hang up with jiu-jitsu guys is they don't know how to wrestle. They can't get the fight to the ground where they need it to be. Jailton Almeida can. So I really can't complain about that with him. But damn, man, like his whole fight with Derek Lewis where he sat on his chest for 25 minutes and did nothing with it, but still managed to win. That didn't sit right with me. I got the win with Curtis Blades, man. I finally took my shot. I was like, look, you're fighting a real heavyweight grappler. This is the spot to go against you here. So I cashed the ticket with Curtis Blades, and they're running it back with another heavyweight grappler. The problem is Alexandr Romanov doesn't have near the striking of Curtis Blades. And Alexandr Romanov, he looks like I took 2 months off eating nothing but McDonald's to train for my fight. That's what he looks like. And he gasses out after the second round. Like, if this guy gets 7 minutes, 7.5 minutes or something like that, that's all he's got. He slows down. He tires out. Now, Romanov is coming off a decision win against Blagoy Ivanov, but it was a weird fight where he decided to strike instead of grappling. Like, this guy does these big explosive takedowns, 300-pound men. He body clinches and chucks them across the room. And it takes a lot of energy to do that, man. It takes a lot of gas. So I just have so many questions here because I'm like, they both suck at striking. Who's the better striker? Romanov might be the slightly better striker, believe it or not, in this spot. And if you get big grapplers Sometimes you end up with a shitty striking match. We could see these guys going toe-to-toe on the feet for 15 minutes. And if that happens, maybe Romanov has the slight edge. And I think Jailton Almeida has a cardio advantage. However, we don't really know that for certain either because he's finishing guys in round 1 and round 2. And my whole reasoning behind betting on Curtis Blades was if he gets him out of round 1, I think he could be exposed for not having great cardio and not being able to continue taking people down and not being able to continue wrestling and styling on people. The only reason it worked against Derek Lewis is because he did nothing. He literally he sat on him. I can sit on Derek Lewis's chest for 25 minutes and barely crack a sweat. I could do that too. So it's not that impressive to me, man. So I still have questions about Jailton Almeida's gas tank, but I know Romanov's gas tank sucks. So what happens? If Jailton's shooting, can he take down Romanov? Romanov's a really good wrestler. What happens if Jailton Almeida ends up on his back in this spot? What if Romanov throws him across the cage and gets on top of him? Does his cardio hold up okay to like fight his way back in and take down Romanov in rounds 2 and 3? I don't know. There's too many questions for me in this spot, James. I don't know enough about where Romanov is in his career. I don't know how seriously he's taking this fight. You know, he got in like major shape for his fight. I think, what was it, the Chase Sherman fight? Where he was in like the best shape of his life. He had abs, man. This guy looked phenomenal. And then his very next fight, he looks like a bag of milk again. It was like he just stopped trying. Like, what happened there, bro? Like, you're in the UFC. And he still looks like he's just rolling off the couch and not really taking his strength and conditioning seriously. So I can't trust him. This is not the spot. I want to fade Jailton Almeida at heavyweight as just kind of a system play for me. That's my natural impulse, but I don't think I can do it with this guy. Almeida's a minus 280 favorite. You can get plus 225 on Alexandr Romanov. And there's no way in hell I'm laying it. So I guess I got to say dog or pass. But like something in my gut, man, like the hairs on the back of my neck say that Jailton Almeida is probably going to end up winning this fight. But I am not laying that kind of chalk on him, especially immediately after he got exposed at heavyweight.
I think you have to fade Jailton at minus 300 here. Boys, this is a public service announcement to everybody in this chat. How are you not fading this guy at minus 300? Surely we fade him at minus 300. You don't have to go big. You can do a half a unit shot if you want. Like, I think you're going to want to have some money on Alexandr Romanov in this fight. Both of these fighters are untrustworthy. Both of these fighters, we don't know what we're getting. Basically, there's just a bunch of question marks around this fight. Yeah, I can break it down technically. It's a bit boring. I can't be bothered. All right. Jailton's probably going to... I think Jailton can get him down in round 1. I do, yeah. I think he can shoot for the single leg. And, man, I don't even know if Romanov can balance on one leg. Do you know what I mean? So as soon as he brings the single leg up, he's probably going to tip him over. If not, he could probably just bundle him over from the single leg anyway. I think he's probably going to be able to get him down in round 1, right? But what if Romanov gets back up to his feet and then Jailton's takedowns start coming slower and slower? Then Romanov can easily take over. This fight could easily be something like one fight is getting dominated for round 1 and then they just lose round 2. They just get finished. Because I don't really trust Jailton on bottom and I don't really trust Romanov on bottom either. I think you favor Jailton slightly because he's more likely to shoot takedowns earlier than Romanov. He's very athletic and I'm confident he can get at least one. So if he's going to be on top first, then probably you favor him based on that. But the cardio is an unknown. The striking is an unknown. Like you said, Romanov could just fucking outstrike this guy. Both fighters are going to be gassed. This is a horrible fight, man. If Jailton, look, put it this way, if Jailton doesn't finish on his first or second takedown, then he can't cover minus 300. So that's it, man. Like, I don't understand how you look at this fight and like lay that money on Jailton Almeida. Basically impossible.
I like it. I like it, James. Like I said, I'm leaving my balls packed away in my wife's purse right now. I don't have the nuts to sack up and pull the trigger on Romanov yet. We'll see. We'll see if I get there by the end of the week. But I definitely think it's dog or pass from a betting perspective. I hate putting my money on guys who fall off that cardio cliff. You know what I mean? Like relying on that guy, even getting like plus 250 or something on him. It's like, oh, like I don't want to bet the guy that could be curled up in a ball 2 minutes into the second round because he can't breathe. So,
But do you think Jailton's gonna, even if that's the case and he's curled up into a ball, do you really think Jailton's not gonna be the same, gassed out as well?
Yeah, I think he might be. And that's why, because like Romanov is every ounce 265 pounds. That man cuts to 265 pounds. He's a heavyweight. And Jailton, I mean, he looks like a god at 265 pounds, but he only weighs 240. You know what I mean? Like this guy could make 205 still. There's a big size difference. So yeah, I think Jailton will be tired trying to take someone big like that down, especially a guy who knows how to wrestle. So I'm with you. Like I think it's dog or pass. Oh man, I don't know. I don't know if I can do it. I might have to. I don't know if I can.
Have we got any idea what shape Romanov is in? Because I'm not gonna lie, man. I bet Alexander Volkov against him at plus 120 or something when they fought. But that was a pathetic performance from Alexander Romanov, and that's one where he came in overweight. Did he came?
Pretty rough,
I think
man.
he came in kind of sloppy against Blagoy as well, though, but still won though. So it's a bit risky. Like, I remember he looked bad against Volkov, and then he looked bad in the fight, right? But he looked just bad, like physically.
Yeah.
Did he look bad against Blagoy as well? Can anyone in the chat let me know? I can't actually remember. I think he kind of did look a kind of fat
I'm pretty
again.
sure he took that fight like damn near on short notice. Like everyone was ready to bet against him again because he looked bad. And he's not looking like he's in any spectacular shape right now, James. That's the thing.
That was from 2 weeks ago, I think. May the 4th, May the 3rd or some shit. And he doesn't look great there, right? But we can't really see, I don't know, like the moped's not doing him any favors. I don't think he's in great shape, but I guess I'm just hoping a little bit because I faded this dude at minus 300, bro. Like I can't allow the bookmakers to or the market to price Jailton as this big of a favorite. It could look stupid. The thing is, if Jailton wins the fight, most likely just finishes him in round 1, and it just, you know what I mean? So it's not going to look good, but I just think it's an easy bet against the minus 280 favorite for me, bro.
I hear you. And, you know, man, I know a lot of people, you know, Uncle Weezy was saying inside the distance is minus 110. That I don't mind. I think that's a good way to bring the price tag down if you want to do that. But I actually think this one probably is more of a KO than it is a sub. Romanov is a very, very big, physical, and strong man, but he's helpless once tired. So I think he's going to be very difficult to submit. He knows how to defend most of those positions, but I could absolutely see him just like not moving or just not doing enough. And if Jailton is on top of him, like gorilla ground and pounding him the way he has before, I could see the ref pulling him off and getting him a TKO win or something. I lean TKO over sub if Jailton is going to finish.
Yeah, I can see both, but yeah, maybe.
Yeah. All right, everybody, moving right along. We've got Kevin Holland. He takes on Michel Lord Oleksiejczuk in this next fight. And this is the anchor of my two-leg parlay. Yes, the two guys on this card that you should not parlay together, that's exactly what I've done, is put Grant Dawson with Kevin Holland here in this spot, man. Like I said before, the UFC has been giving fighters that get right spot. And I think that's exactly what's happening here. Kevin Holland is a company man, guys. You know, we've talked about he's very skilled. You know, he's a natural 170 pounder, I think, but he kind of moonlights at 185, and he's a little on the small side at 185, but that's really when he's fighting grapplers. When he's fighting strikers, he has no problem hanging out at 185 and causing problems. He's fast. He hits hard. He's got slick jiu-jitsu. Love Kevin Holland's overall game. Where he lets you down is the fight IQ. You know, the Wonder Boy situation. He wants to go out there and put on a show. He's not going to take the easiest path to victory. He's not going to grapple a guy like Wonder Boy. But what I think you can trust in this spot is that he is pissed off. Kevin Holland, with a chip on his shoulder, is a different animal, guys. Like, he wants to go out there and get the bag. He wants to go out there and get paid. He wants to go out there and have fun. But he also doesn't like to be embarrassed. And anytime he's embarrassed, he comes out the next fight like a bat out of hell. Like, they threw him to Hamzat. He knew what he was getting into. They gave him Wonder Boy. He played around and got finished. He was embarrassed. He came back with a broken hand and knocked out Santiago Ponzinibbio in his next fight. He literally had a broken hand going into the Ponzinibbio fight and was like, don't care finishing him. Like, he had to get that one back. And then he finishes Chiesa in his next fight. Now, he lost a greasy split to Jack Della Maddalena, a fight he thought he probably won. He lost a decision to Michael Venom Page, a guy that was brand new to the UFC, and a fight where a lot of people felt he had done enough to get the win. Another fight that Kevin thinks he won. Well, now they're giving him Michel Oleksiejczuk, a guy who's dropped down from 205. So there will be maybe some, size situation going on there. But a guy who does not have good cardio, a guy who does not have good grappling, a guy who does not have good fight IQ, and it's just going to come forward, pedal to the metal, and bang in round one. That's all Oleksiejczuk does. He doesn't know anything different. If this fight gets out of round one, it's Kevin Holland all day. If this fight ends in round one, it could be either guy landing a big shot, but I trust the durability of Kevin Holland a whole lot more than I trust the durability at this stage of Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. I think Holland is going to find his way to a neck. Wouldn't surprise me if it knocked him out. I think inside the distance makes a ton of sense. But like I said, I'm going to parlay him, use him for the anchor to just be safe. I like me some pissed off Kevin Holland coming into this spot here, James. What do you think about this fight?
It's a weird fight. Kevin Holland is rare. You rarely trust Kevin Holland at minus 300. He can get into swinging contests with his opponents, and he doesn't. There's times where he doesn't use the full length of his frame, which is silly because he's a very tall, long, lanky dude. 185 seems, pretty good for Kevin. I think it'd just be too clean in this fight. I think his long-range weapons are too much. I think his 1-2 is too much. Michel's going to come and crash the distance, and I can see him getting finished in close quarters, kind of like how Kevin Holland finished Fluffy Hernandez. I think the knees will be there, and I think the elbows will be there in close quarters. I wouldn't be surprised if Kevin got clocked a couple of times with some big shots, but he's got a very, very good chin, right? Kevin's got an elite chin. He took some crazy blows in his last fight, and he's been doing it his entire career. So I don't think he's going to get finished in this fight, but I do think someone's going to get finished. So I'm calling Kevin Holland inside the distance. I wouldn't lay his money line. You did parlay him, you said that, but me personally, I wouldn't, just because, I don't know, man. He's just a little bit, I just don't like to trust someone like that. But I would bet him inside the distance. I guess if the line was good. Are we getting any type of decent line on ITD? Probably not, no.
You know what? Let me check for you here. Kevin Holland inside the distance, it looks like is minus 105 at DraftKings.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it goes to decision. I mean, is Michel really going to last 15 minutes in this one? The guy's going to push forward like a madman. He does it in every fight, and he's probably
exactly. I can't see it.
Yeah, I can't really see it either. So I guess I would maybe look for some Kevin ITD or something, but I think I'm just going to pass on this one overall.
The reason I did the money line is, while I'm with you, again, I do think Kevin Holland finishes. But when you get these guys that need a win, sometimes the game plan changes. You know what I mean? You've got both guys coming off losses. Kevin could just stick and move. He could, if the finish doesn't materialize, he's not going to push for it. He'll just keep the range. He'll jab this guy up. Maybe Oleksiejczuk doesn't crash the pocket because he's a little worried. He just got knocked out. He doesn't want to have that happen again. He's got to worry about the grappling here, so he takes it a little slower. Like that's the kind of reasoning I've got for doing the money line parlay instead of doing inside the distance. I do think Kevin finishes, but there's a world where he wins a decision. So I went ahead and did the anchor on the parlay here, and that'll do it for me, man. We'll see what happens.
What about submission?
The numbers aren't great. So Kevin Holland by sub looks like what, plus 275?
Oh, yeah, no, I thought it'd be better than that. But, I thought it would be shit, but I was hoping we might get better. I'll pass on 275.
Yeah, it's not where I'd like it to be, but I mean, we'll see. It probably makes its way into my submission special by the end of the week. You guys know how I roll on that one. I like the sub call here for Kevin Holland, but we'll see. We'll see how we end up doing. All right, everybody, co-main event time. We have Sean Strickland taking on Paulo Costa, and to my dismay, James, this is a 5-round co-main event.
Wow.
At least that's how it's listed on Tapology. I was like, no way are they doing a 5-round co-main event with Paulo Costa. We've seen that before. That probably favors Sean Strickland. We know his never-ending gas tank, so they probably don't want to put Paulo in that position, but based on what I'm seeing. We've got a 5-round co-main event, so we'll see what happens here. Man, Sean Strickland is a guy that I still am kind of floored by what's happened with Sean Strickland. He's the guy that came out of left field for me, that he put it all together. He suddenly became a superstar. He took UFC gold. He is fighting at the peak of his powers in a way that I never expected, especially for a guy that, has a brain like Sean Strickland does, who thinks the way that Sean Strickland does. Like, I just didn't ever think he would put it all together quite that well. And he has. He really has. He's motivated. He's focused. He's got a therapy dog now. Like, it's doing wonders for his mental state. He's got a girlfriend, James. Like, that man is living his best life right now, and he just wants his gold belt back, which is something I never thought I'd say. But dear God, Sean Strickland had gold in the UFC wrapped around his waist at one point. This man stands upright and walks forward and just punches you in the face. I mean, that's as simple as it possibly can get, and that's exactly what he does. He's all cardio. He's all pace. He doesn't give you 2 seconds to process. He doesn't give you 2 seconds to breathe, and he will just beat the ever-living piss out of you, and you've got to be able to keep pace. If you don't have the cardio to keep pace, it's not that he hits the hardest. It's not that he's going to hurt you with his ridiculous power. It's that he just never stops. So eventually it breaks you mentally. Eventually you wilt under that kind of pressure. Now, Paulo Costa is a guy that I thought was outed a long time ago as not being a true threat to the title in this weight class. Man, his last win was Luke Rockhold, and he couldn't even finish chinny-ass old Luke Rockhold when they fought in 2022. He got a questionable decision over Yoel Romero in an absolute banger back in 2019. This guy hasn't knocked anybody out since Uriah Hall in 2018. 6 years ago. He's supposed to be this big murderous Brazilian power puncher, and he hasn't knocked out anybody for 6 years. Man, he can hardly get to the cage. I remember the stunt he pulled with Marvin Vettori. That sounds like your own personal problem thing, where he decided that he wasn't going to fight in the weight class that he had signed the bout agreement for. And Marvin Vettori is such a gangster. He was like, bro, let's fight at heavyweight. I don't give a fuck. I'm going to whip your ass. Like, I love Marvin Vettori, but Paulo's always playing. He's always goofing off. He is always trying to find an edge or an angle or push the limit. And I just don't know that that's going to keep working for him. He's a guy that I think has been derailed. And if he ever wants a chance at a title, this is like a must-win spot for him. If he loses to Sean Strickland, I mean, shit, he might as well go to the WWE. Like, he might as well start professional wrestling because he's just never going to get this opportunity. People will not take him seriously as a fighter in the top 5 in the UFC if he doesn't win this fight. But how does he win this fight? Man, like, does he knock out Sean? Like, Sean's been had before. He does walk forward with his chin up. He will take punches. But is Paulo the guy that's going to catch him? I don't know that he is. The problem for me, man, is I've noticed that Sean Strickland doesn't separate himself well. And especially against guys who are big, who are physical, who are hard to move around. Those are the guys he struggles with. Dricus du Plessis is a perfect example. Jared Cannonier is a perfect example. And I think Paulo Costa, in some senses, falls into that category. So this could be a fight where it's a bit of a tough matchup for Sean to do what he generally likes to do against this giant mountain of a man. And I think that could lead to this fight being very close. I'm expecting this thing to go all 5 rounds. I'm expecting it to be a banger where it's just a ton of back and forth. These guys are hitting each other. These guys are doing whatever they can to get the other one off balance. They're going to talk to each other in there. There's going to be mental games going on. This should be a hell of a spectacle, James. This is going to be a fun fight to watch. But who gets their hand raised? I think it's going to be a lot closer than this line suggests. I think everyone's sold on Sean Strickland having, been robbed by Dricus in that last fight. He wasn't, by the way. The rightful man is champion, folks. Sorry, hate to break it to you. But Sean Strickland minus 245, minus 250 makes me feel a little icky. I also am not ready to trust Paulo Costa, but the wider this line gets, the more I feel like it's dog or pass, man. Plus 200 on Paulo in a fight that should be very, very close when we know he's durable. So I don't think we have to worry about a finish. We know Sean is not going to wrestle, so we don't have to worry about the grappling, and it's going to be a volume fest. Paulo Costa by decision, plus 800. James, am I crazy?
No, you're not, bro. That was a sick breakdown. Because, you started off kind of like not dissing Paulo, but you're saying maybe he's not that level. I thought you was just gonna end up with Sean minus 240, all good. But bro, you came back with the Paulo Costa look,
Got to
and I
bring it
don't mind that
around.
take. Yeah, you
It's an
turned it
art,
around at the
James.
end.
It's an art.
You had us in the first half. I think look, I do think that Sean should be favored. I do think that got the upside in the fight overall. I think that he's beat better competition, faced better competition, proven himself more in front of our eyes in the UFC. So it's easy to point to him and say, I think he's going to win because look at what he's done, right? It's an easy thing to do. But I think there's a few intricacies to the fight that could make it interesting. If we look a little bit closer, something that you mentioned is something that I was going to mention is that when I've seen Sean fight these power punchers, and we're going to speak about if Costa's a power puncher in a minute, because he might not even be, right? But when he's fought these physical, powerful strikers, I don't think he's looked as good in those fights as he has in other fights, right? I don't think he looked as good in the Jared Cannonier fight as most of his other fights. I don't think he looked as good in the Dricus Duplessis fight as most of his other fights. And then obviously in the Alex Pereira fight, he got knocked out in round 1. So he didn't look as good in that fight against other fights, right?
Well,
So
even
those are the
round
three.
1 against Abus. Round 1 was sketchy for him
True.
against Abus Magomedov.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So, like there is some intricacies. Maybe when he's fighting these guys who hit a little bit hard, who are athletic, which all of those guys are. And let's be clear, Paulo Costa does hit hard. I don't think he's a knockout artist at all, right? It's funny because he's fought to be this knockout guy. He doesn't get knockouts, right? He doesn't get knockouts like he used to when he first came up fighting Johnny Hendricks and Uriah Hall at the end of their careers. But the guy doesn't finish anyone, right? He couldn't really hurt Marvin, couldn't hurt Luke Rockhold. He did hurt Robert Whittaker, ended up losing the decision. That was a crazy spinning wheel kick. Outside of that, he didn't do much. I don't think he's this crazy power puncher, but I do think he's physical and athletic enough and hits fast and hard enough. Like he's got a clubbing blow, right? It's just not a knockout blow. I think that could make Sean a bit hesitant in the fight. Maybe he doesn't throw as many jabs as he would usually do. Maybe he gets wobbled once and that literally loses him the round. I could definitely see this fight being closer than most people would predict. So I'm with you. I'm looking at Costa as a potential bet. I don't know if I'll end up there because I do think Sean has the volume upside. I think he's the much better. I think he's just proven himself so much more in MMA. I don't like these guys who are completely a lot more unproven. But the last thing I'll say on this one that's leaning me towards some type of bet on Paulo Costa is the line, right? It's just the line, man. Like when you get fighters who are at the upper echelon of the division, which these two are, and one guy's plus 200, most times it's a good bet. Not all the time, but most times. Steven Usyk, Pantoja. You're giving me Usyk at plus 200. It's just an obvious bet,
Don't
right?
remind me.
Yeah, I'm sorry, bro. We can cry together because I was on Usyk there as well. Crazy decision round 5. But what I'm trying to say is like when the fighters, even if one fight is way more proven, like Pantoja, the level difference isn't that big to be plus 200, in my opinion. Now, can Sean look minus 250? If he gets his game going, and he could out-volume him because he does throw a lot of volume when he gets in his groove. And if you throw a lot of volume, you can look like a big favorite because it's like, well, what's the other guy going to do? He's just out-volumed every round, right? So, yes, maybe he could potentially look minus 250 in some iterations, but yeah, the last thing I'll say is that plus 200 on a fight where the levels are fairly similar, usually it's the right side. So I think that Costa's the right side in this fight, and I might even bet him myself.
I like it. I'm glad you agree with me there, man. Dog or pass. I don't ever feel comfortable putting my money on Paulo Costa, but he is a big popular draw for the UFC. And he also, I know the secret juice is supposed to be a joke, man, but it's not a joke. Paulo is on all the secret juice, and USADA's not with the UFC anymore. We'll see if he becomes that vaunted power striker again in this fight now that it's his first time back without USADA's involvement. And I think, man, it's going to be one of those fights where It's volume versus power, right? Like he's going to get outstruck. He's going to get outlanded. The question is going to come down to what are the judges looking for that night? It's going to fight out. It's going to play out very, very closely. And it's just going to come down to what exactly are the judges looking for. And if they like the power that night, Paulo will win the decision. And I think it's going to be very close that way. So I think I'll probably do a small money line bet, and then I'll do my usual, half unit prop sprinkle on that Paulo Costa by decision. AAB asking, what do you think about it going to a split? I don't even hate that, man. I don't hate that at all because I think it's going 25 minutes. And if it's going to be close, we could see whacked out judges' scorecards. We could see judges' scorecards everywhere with this kind of a fight. So split decision may be worth a look.
I like that decision. I'm pissed that it's 5-round fight. I think it probably. Can you hear that banging in the back, by the way, or not?
No.
All right. Great.
Seems fine to me. But I also hear people playing Smash Bros without me out in the living room. So assholes.
Well, finish,
I'm about to rock up some Pikachu and lightning bolt some people off the map.
That was the old school game. What, Super Smash Brothers Melee?
Yeah, Super Smash Bros.
Bro, that was so good, man. That's a nostalgia for me.
It's a vacation staple, man. You got to bring the old games with you.
Yeah. What do you play on, though? I used to play that on Nintendo 64 or something crazy like that.
We got the Switch these days. I've got an eight-year-old daughter, so it's Mario Kart, Animal Crossing, and Smash Bros, man.
Yeah, I haven't played the Switch, but maybe I should check it out. So you can get all the old games and stuff on there, yeah?
Yeah. I even got like the old like Nintendo 64 Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time and stuff. I'm geeking out hard, man. We got all the good old stuff now.
Old school, man. Don't get me started on James Bond GoldenEye, man. We need to get off this. I'm gonna get gas, bro. You're bringing me back to the old school, the 10-year-old James, man. I used to play all of them games, bro.
That's what I'm talking about. Hey, being a dad, man, it brings you back. I got to show my daughter the good stuff. She needs a proper education.
She needs to kill some people on James Bond GoldenEye, yes.
Exactly. All right, guys.
Yeah, all right, back to the fight. So, yeah, not much more to say on that one, Clint. Basically, bro, I think Costa's probably the side at the odds, and I don't mind the decision. It seems like a sneaky play that could be close.
I like it. Let's go Paulo Costa. All right, everybody. Main event time. Islam Makhachev takes on Dustin the Diamond Poirier. And, oh, my Lord. So, James, this fight is tough for me because I have never, ever been a believer in Islam Makhachev. Did you guys know that since Islam became champion? Now, I know he knocked out everybody's favorite, Charles Oliveira du Bronx, to win the belt. And that in itself puts him in a very exclusive club in the UFC. He's never defended that title against the lightweight. He's only fought a 145er since he's become the champion of this weight class. And that's one of those things to me that's suspect. Now, it might be the greatest of all time. It might be Alexandr Volkanovski that he beat twice. But you've got to say that size at a certain point matters, right? And he had such a big physicality edge in those fights that it wasn't even funny. And one of them was very, very close. Islam is a phenomenal wrestler. Obviously, he is Khabib's protege, but they're trying to sell us on the fact that Islam is Khabib 2.0, man. And personally, I don't believe that. I think Khabib was still the better of the two. I know that's what they've got to do. They've got to sell the next generation. They got to sell the young guy. I don't believe that Islam is Khabib. And everyone thinks that I'm Team Nurmagomedov because of my love for Umar, because I'm pounding the drum for Umar is the real star that is coming around the corner for these guys. Islam's got the belt. He's a phenomenal fighter. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think he is what those other two guys are. The only problem for me, James, is that in MMA, there are no happy endings. Dustin Poirier has talked multiple times that win, lose, or draw, this is probably it for him. He's probably going to retire after this fight, whether he gets the belt or not. Now, I could see him defending the strap. If he wins the title, I could see him defending that belt one time because why not? But he doesn't want to climb the ladder again. He's ready to move on to the next stage of his life. He's talking about how he wants to spend more time with his kids. And as a dad, I completely sympathize with that, and I get that. But that puts you one foot out the door, man. But Dustin Poirier is one of these freaks that I can trust. And by that, I mean, if you're talking about retirement, I am either fading you or I'm passing on the fight. I will never put my money on a fighter that I know is straight up retiring. Dustin might be the exception to that rule, man, because I know that this guy's cut from a different cloth. He will come in and give everything. He will fight in that cage until he dies. He will do whatever it takes to get the win every time, even if he's never going to fight ever again. He will go out for blood in that last fight, and I'm sure of that. He is a BMF title holder. Those guys are built differently. So I'm not worried too much about the retirement portion of this conversation. It comes down to the X's and O's. And what we know is Dustin Poirier can get out grappled. In a lot of these high profile fights, he gives up his back trying to stand up, and that leaves his neck exposed, and he's been caught on more than one occasion with that rear naked choke. Islam is going to try to one-up this man. We know Dustin loves to jump ghillie. There's video out there already of Islam training the guillotine himself. So he's going to try to pull ghillie on the ghillie master just to kind of have that extra little feather in his cap. So I think you've got to take a long, hard look at Islam by submission. You got to take a long, hard look at it because I think it just makes a ton of sense. And I think that's going to be the game plan with Khabib driving the camp for Islam, with what we've seen from the history. It all just makes too much sense for him to come out and look for a submission finish. But I also don't think that Islam Makhachev is built for war the same way a guy like Dustin is. I've talked before about how Charles Oliveira is a little bit chinny, man. It's a durability question of his that I've had for a long time. He gets hurt a lot. He gets dropped a lot. And he got clubbed by Islam Makhachev. Islam's got hands, man. He's got some heavy, heavy hands. He's got power. But I don't think the technical aspect of it is there. I don't think the speed is there. And he's been had before on the feet. He's been knocked out before. That's his one professional loss is by KO. And he throws the same exact hook combo that he threw when he got knocked out. He throws that today. That's what he knocked Charles Oliveira out with, was the same combo that got him his first professional loss. And I don't think he's built for the kind of war that someone like Dustin Poirier can put out there, man. You know, my guy Benoit Saint-Denis, this is supposed to be his title shot. Papers were signed. My futures ticket, 30-1 on Benoit Saint-Denis. This was supposed to be his moment here tonight. But Dustin Poirier upset the apple cart. Played spoiler. I'm not sure that Islam can keep pace with the kind of action Dustin Poirier is willing to bring, especially the deeper this fight goes, because he's never going to slow down. He's not going to stop. I am so tempted to make a little flyer here on Dustin Poirier, man. I really am. And I'm tempted to do it by knockout. It's a crazy number. It's like 7-1. I think that's the best chance he's got to win. As much as I want to see a Dustin Poirier guillotine, I just really don't believe that's going to actually happen. But I won't really be caught in this spot laying the lumber on Islam Makhachev. It's the first time he's ever fought an actual lightweight defending his title. And it's a guy who, frankly, I think is kind of a bad matchup for him. So we will see how this fight goes.
Bro,
I think I'm going to say Islam defends his title and Dustin doesn't ride off into the sunset. But my heart, James, my heart wants the exact opposite of that. I want Dustin to get undisputed UFC gold wrapped around his waist finally after the longest journey in history. It feels like when Michael Bisping finally got that title shot, man. I want to see him do it. I want to see him get that. And because of that, I know I'm biased, and it makes it real tough for me to bet it because I'm not trying to bet on something I wish would happen. I want to bet on something I'm pretty sure is going to happen. So pass for now for me, but it's dog or pass from a betting perspective for me as well.
okay, bro. I think that Dustin used up all his winning equity last fight against Benoit Saint-Denis. I think he's running into a brick wall here. I think his takedown defense is non-existent against someone like Islam Makhachev. I think they're levels apart in the grappling. You know, Islam has such a deep wrestling base that even if Dustin defends the first takedown, he's just going to be able to reshoot and take him down again, man. On the feet, I think Islam can stay safe for a good amount of the fight. It's not easy to hit Islam Makhachev. Alexander Volkanovski had trouble doing so. Yes, he's a bit smaller than Dustin. Yes, he's a bit shorter. But his setups to the striking are actually a lot better. And, you know, even he had struggled to hit Islam Makhachev clean. I think Dustin's just going to get taken down and broken by pace and pressure, you know. In this fight, Dustin Poirier is coming to the end of his career, and Islam is in his prime. I think Islam's a really, really, really good fighter. And I think that he's probably going to break Dustin Poirier with grappling pressure and submit him in round 2 or something like that.
I like an under.
Yeah.
I think I'm more inclined to bet violence than I am to pick a side.
Is it 2.5 and juice to the under or something like that?
That is a good question. You know, we've
think it's
talked
2.5.
about it. I didn't actually look. Let me check that here for you.
It was 2.5 when I looked last week.
Sorry, give me a second. Let me get here.
Take your time.
2.5 minus 160.
Probably just play. What's Makhachev? Makhachev sub is like plus 120, plus 110.
Yeah, it's even money for Makhachev sub, and that's probably going to be the last leg on my submission special, folks. Just telling you right now, I think that'll make the cut for the sub special, because how can you not? You know what I mean? Even though I'm leaning the other way, I think that's the most likely outcome.
Yeah, that's my prediction, man. I think Islam's. I think he's going to go through him at some point in the fight. It's going to be too much, and Dustin Poirier, he's going to get broken.
There are no happy endings in MMA, ladies and gentlemen. Hate to break it to you, but that is UFC 302. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us here this evening. James, my man, thank you for breaking this card down with me, especially on light sleep, man. What can you tell the people? Where can they find you? Where can they support you if you're doing anything else this week for this pay-per-view card? Tell the people where they can help you out.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, bro. You perked me up. I'm ready for the day now. I've only on 1 hour sleep, but that's good, bro. It's 8:26 a.m. now. So, man, we've been going for 2 hours and it's still like super early morning, which feels good. It feels good to be awake. Yeah, you said I had a Telegram earlier. You mentioned it. Everyone should just jump in my Telegram. I'm always posting in there, always posting good stuff. Sometimes I post free pics in there, etc., etc. The way to get to my Telegram, how are you going to do this? I don't even really know how Telegram works too much, but if you go to my website, you can get my Telegram, I think, on the free tips page. So lucrativemmabetting.com. I also put out videos on YouTube, Instagram, all of that good stuff, man. Just type in Lucrative MMA on any social media, you'll find me. Thanks for having me on, Clint. I haven't made a lot of content lately. I've been out of the game a little bit. I'm still in the game every week betting, but content-wise, I haven't made too much. I've been really busy. I've been traveling, as you can see. But I'm going to come back to the content soon. This has perked up my interest back in the content again. So thanks for bringing me on, bro. I always have a good time doing it with you. And let's cash this weekend, man.
Hell yeah, man. We're going to make some money this weekend. Thank you so much for doing the show. You're a staple here on the podcast. We really appreciate the time and love talking fights with you, man. Always, every time. Travel safe. Enjoy that break and that vacation, man. And for everybody else listening to the show, thank you all so much. Hey, I know I'm out and about and traveling, but we're still going to do the total takedown. I don't know how this is going to work this week, guys, because usually we do the Undefeated Post-Weigh-In show and the Sharp Action Report, but with my traveling and my Wi-Fi situation, those are both going to be hard to pull off this week. So I will do some homework and see what we are going to do about those two shows for you. I'm sure I will manage to get them to you in some way, shape, or fashion. They might be early, they might be late. I'm not sure yet, so bear with me there on that. But either way, you will find them here on the home of fight. Jump in the Discord if you guys like fighting Discords where you're talking about betting and sports betting and fights in UFC. There's a link to that bad boy in the description. Jump in the Telegram, especially if you're just looking for news blasts. Get in there on that one, guys. And thank you all so much for always supporting. Gamble responsibly. Let's make some cash this weekend. James, I am -1 unit in 2024. I added it all up. We did the math. I'm down 1 unit so far this year with everything I've done. It is time to rocket this bad boy up. I dug myself a hole. I dug myself right out of it. And now we're headed upwards. We're going to finish the year strong. And we're going to take that bag home with us starting on Saturday. Let's freaking go. I got to go bet Joselyne Edwards. Love you guys. Thank you for joining the show.
Does anybody else have any other stupid questions for me tonight? Thank you. Have a good night.
That'll do it. Have a good one, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.